Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
When you and I were in the corporate world, the goal was not to make the relationship, but it was how many cards could you bring back to the office.
Oh, they did count that way.
Yes, they counted the number of cards.
Those.
And to be honest, I can honestly tell you, in that stack of cards, I probably never had a sale.
Hey, everybody, it's Wednesday. It's the Pitchwerks podcast. It's Scott McTaggart and joined by my good friend, Lisa Davidson from the Outsourced Sales Manager. And let me tell you, this is going to be fun. Some of the feedback we've been getting says, hey, why can't you give me some things that I can do right now in my job, day to day? Today, we're going to talk about how it is that you might approach new customers. And I brought Lisa in because this is one of the main things that she talks about. So we're going to get into that. We're going to do the usual stuff. I'm going to ask you to rate and review the program so that other people can find us and see these great, reviews and find out about how wonderful you think we are. It really does help, all joking aside, it really does help us and help other people to find the show. So I hope you'll go into iTunes or Google Play Music podcasts and just give us 5 stars, 1 star. It's great. It sucks. Go away. Whatever your feedback might be. Don't forget, all that feedback can also come to us if you've got specific things that you'd like to see. Hit us up on social media. Pretty much every one of those social channels, just use the handle Pitchwerks, Pitchwerks. And same goes for the website. It's just pitchwerks.com. Spell it the same way. Put the E in works. So without any further ado, coming up next, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to drill into Lisa's head and we're going to find out what the outsourced sales manager thinks about finding new customers. We're going to change format a little bit this week. What do you think?
It's good not to get stale.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to go hipster, but you definitely don't want to get stale.
That's exactly right.
Today's show is solely going to be focused on finding new customers. That's everybody's job, no matter who you are in a company, right? Whether you're the CEO or you're the person who just got started sort of at the front desk even, right? It's your job to sort of like keep the business moving, get them exposed to new customers and that sort of thing. And the reason I invited you in was I think we can work through a few, maybe not like role-playing examples, right? But we can kind of tabletop it and we can say like, okay, if this is the situation that you're in, here's how you can advance the cause. And the first one I think is probably easiest to start with is most people, when they get involved in sales, they are told that they have a quota and they start to get nervous, right? They go like, how am I going to put that money into the machine?
Exactly.
You're getting started. That's the first thing you got to talk about, right? Is like, how do I even find customers? And you don't have any backlog. You don't have anybody sort of going through the process, right? So if we're on day one, we're brand new to the organization, we've got to start reaching out. Now, I don't know about you, but the first thing I like to do is I like to start talking to people I already know.
Absolutely.
Now, that's family, friends. We live in the age of social media. So
Yes.
You're going to put it on LinkedIn. You changed your job. Maybe call some people that you knew from either if you're just coming out of college or from a job that you used to do, right?
That's right.
Who am I missing?
I think you got everybody.
Yeah.
I think you've given the general idea of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. I'm trying to set the expectation that these are people that really do want you to succeed. So I'm going to tell you what I think, and then I want you to sort of critique where I'm coming from.
You bet.
Is that cool?
Absolutely.
All right. So for the purposes of this example, I'm just getting started, and let's say that I am coming from another place with not as much responsibility, not as much ability, like not as much latitude. Maybe I was inside sales. I was working retail, right? Where people come to you. And that's where a lot of people get started. And now all of a sudden they just kind of take the leash off you. Like, okay, go do it. And let's assume that you got a territory, a specific group of people you're supposed to call on. The very first thing, if it's me, that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get to know everybody in the company. I'm going to ask them what it is that the company does. What do they like about it? What are we really good at it? Like, what do the customers have to say? And then I'm going to try to replicate that by finding people that fit the pattern of the stories my coworkers just told me. I think generally in the fact-finding mode, you're talking a couple days, 3 days, right? And then I'm going to look through my territory. I'm going to find out who it is that matches that. So if we're really good, for example, we're a copier company and we make other sales organizations really happy because they go through so much paper printing out proposals and cut sheets and documents and whatever, reference letters and, case studies. I'm going to go find those people. They're the heavy users of the product. And I'm going to say, okay, who has a big sales team? I'm going to try to copy it because that's what they told me worked before I arrived here. I have no reason to expect it's going to stop working the day I get here. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay. So then from there, I'm going to go start what? What do you like to do? Knock doors? Make the phone calls?
I don't like either one of those.
Oh boy, here we go. We brought her in for friction and she brought it to the table.
I'll deliver. I'll deliver. I'm telling you, Scott, if at that point, once you have your target market in your head and you can tell good stories, you've got good stories. That story is a profile because now that develops your value proposition that we've been talking about forever and ever, amen.
Yes.
And now you've got something good to say to the people that you are going to find. And what you're going to be able to do once you have that profile is you're going to go to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you're going to find groups and associations and folks like that where all those people of your target market congregate.
Right.
And then you can be cherry picking because now the people that were at your wedding, if you're not linked in with them, you probably should be because they might know the people that are in those groups and associations. And now you can develop your call list in maybe a day.
That's smooth. I like that.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I haven't actually been on that side for a while now, right? And I know, we should remind people, not everybody probably listened when you first came in here. I mean, Lisa, when she's not here in the Epicast Studios, is actually running a very successful consulting firm called the Outsourced Sales Manager, where she's actually bringing people into this world that is, correct me if you think I'm wrong, largely foreign to them, right?
Or not in their skill set.
Right.
They know they have to sell, but that's not the thing that they love to do. And it's definitely not something that they're really good at just on the outset.
When you and I first met, whatever that was, not a couple years ago, right? Not enough people were in these groups and these pools. You couldn't get to them easily.
No.
Right? Okay, so there were associations. You could go to like a group meeting for like people that had the same job and they met once a month.
But you'd have to beg, borrow, and steal to get the magic list.
Yeah.
To get the magic list, you probably had to bribe somebody or know somebody, where now it's all out there. And I tell my clients all the time, when you and I were back in sales and starting, had we had LinkedIn and Google, we would not be sitting here. We'd own our own islands. We'd be basking in the sun. And because life would have been so much easier. It's
definitely the truth. The information is out there now, and we definitely struggled with how do we get. This is the Google argument too. Google, a lot of people come to me and they say, how do I get to the first page of Google? Because that's how I'm going to make all of my dreams come true, right? That's almost impossible in most people's businesses because everyone now knows that that's where the customers are. If I'm going to buy a car, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Research the car. If I'm looking for a Ford, I'm going to say Ford dealer Pittsburgh. And then all of those sponsored things are going to show up and they've spent a lot of money on those clicks, right? Because they know that that's where all the buyers are going to be is Ford dealer Pittsburgh results are going to be where the buyers are. But what I liked about what you said is if you're not linked in with those people yet, you kind of need to be. But then there's these groups. Slowing that whole thought process down just for a moment It's that you need to understand what tools are in that LinkedIn toolbox. How much time do you spend on this, explaining it to people?
Well, it's so in depth, and you can use it. It's such a valuable tool,
Yeah.
and it can be used in so many different ways, depending what you're trying to achieve. It can be, if you're job hunting, that's a whole different conversation. If you want to use it for marketing purposes, for just like you would for Pitchwerks,
Right.
Getting your name out
I would
there.
never do such a thing.
Of course you would.
I have.
Of course you would.
I continue to.
That's right, because it's an incredible tool. And not to give, a tutorial on LinkedIn, but there's so much stuff out there, even on YouTube, on how to use LinkedIn.
The right ways.
What's worked for me. And then again, every tool doesn't have a right answer. So you need to look at the tool and adapt it to your needs, yourself, and even your skill set.
See, one of the hardest things about that, though, is taking the time to take inventory of what it does, because it's counterintuitive that you would need to slow down and really look at all of the various menus and sub functions and whatnot. People think of it the way they think of Facebook, I think, sometimes, where they go, everything I need to see kind of just shows up in the middle.
Yeah, no.
And I don't really talk so much as I listen, right? But there are some very potent tools in there. You mentioned groups. There's a group for everything.
There's a group for everything.
There's a group for people that used to work at particular companies.
Yes.
Group for people that do work at that company now. There's a group for people by geography that want to network. And that's just groups. I mean, groups is one small sliver of what LinkedIn is.
Exactly.
Now, are you using anything else on the social networking side as much as you're using LinkedIn? I haven't seen anything really rise to that same level.
No, I think LinkedIn has so much information in one spot.
Yeah.
And again, once you decide the best way to work it for you and you develop your process of how to use that tool, and that has to be a consistent process in your overall sales prospecting process, to bring us back on topic.
Yeah.
But you really, using the tutorials, I think for me, was a key piece in understanding what pieces didn't work for me and what did, without the hard trial and error and the time frame, wasting time on things that don't work. Because if you watch the tutorial, yourself right off the bat, that ain't working for me.
Yeah.
That's way too much work, or
I'm not a recruiter,
That's right.
Yeah, those kinds of things. Again, it's just about knowing what's available. Once you understand the tools that are in your toolbox, you don't have to use them all. You may never have a cause to use this thing ever again, but knowing which ones are in there obviously is the first step to using anything.
Absolutely, especially in a world where you are using LinkedIn and you're starting to have some warm connections. That's not an email.
Yeah.
That contact is a phone call to be able to say, hey, guess what? Scott, you and I both know Scott, and Scott thought that I should have a conversation with you about whatever it is that you're selling, and the story that you learned from Sally in accounting, to be able to tell that story to that particular person that you're talking to. That is such a warmer-upper.
Yeah. See, but here's what I keep seeing in my head, though. Like, you're painting this picture, but I think of it as these networking events, right? I think of there are a bunch of people that come together to one place. And being honest, right? I want something from you. You want something from me. If you say something that's of value and surprise me, I'm not going to say no, right? I'm not going to say oh, well, no, I like paying too much for my, fleet insurance. I only came here to speak. I actually had my ears surgically plugged before the evening began. How much do you encourage people to do those business mixers?
I love networking. My business, Outsourced Sales Manager, was built on my network, and that network was built on lots of hard work, lots of shaking hands and kissing babies. But the key thing, and you and I both know this, the key thing about networking, two key facts. First one is you have to go where your target market is. So if a chamber event is going to be too broad of a scope because you need manufacturers, then you need to be very selective and do your homework on the networking events that you attend, because you want the people that can say yes to you in that room.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So don't just go to network, because when you and I were in the corporate world, the goal was not to make the relationship, but it was how many cards could you bring back to the office.
Oh, they did count that way.
Yes, they counted the number of cards.
Those.
And to be honest, I can honestly tell you, in that stack of cards, I probably never had a sale.
Did you ever, side topic, just because that is a very interesting point you just made, that I think, traumatically blocked out of
I'm sure you did.
Right. You remember when we had to actually go knock doors
Yes.
and they would count how many cards? Or even worse, after you graduated and you became the boss as opposed to being the rep knocking the doors, right? You just have nothing but pity for that person who says, "But can I have your card, please?" Because that's how their boss keeps score. Looking back, it's the most bizarre way of counting success.
Yes. Well, and it really isn't success.
Right. Yeah.
It isn't
If we're
success.
being real, it's
Yes.
bizarre because it's not true.
It's an accounting of how you may have spent your day.
One of the things, the shortcomings of that sort of, that first example was that it presupposes a sales function. It presupposes that we're like a corporation with a cubicle or a cubicle farm of a bunch of people that are going out with expressly sales in their job title, right? Now, one thing I know you've been spending a lot of time on is the people who haven't gotten to that point yet, right? Where they have started their own business and either they're doing their own selling, they have multiple hats on multiple people. So what are you encouraging them to do in terms of finding new customers who don't even know they exist?
Well, what's different is Sue, who owns the hair salon, she is going to not just be able to connect, but she's going to be able to bring the story and the passion behind why she started her business. And you and I both know that's the hook for people. People love stories. They want to understand when you watch The Voice, why do they spend all that time on the backstory of the person rather than just letting them sing?
I love the analogy here. That's cool.
It's because the hook for you to start to root for that person is their backstory. Yeah, they might be an incredible singer, but to know that this guy has a little girl that he has to feed is a way more passionate story.
And mom and dad are on the side.
That's right.
And they're just beaming. They're so proud. And they do the little cutaway shot where you get to see the reaction of the family as the other person. This is a really good analogy.
Yes. Now, Sue at the networking event can tell that story. She can talk about how, the reason she started her business is because grandma used to do her hair when she was a kid and she was inspired. And whatever that is, people will remember her. Yeah. If it's not business that day, people are going to remember Sue because she's the face of Sue's hair salon.
Yep. And owners have a secret weapon in that regard.
Yes, they do.
People love hearing the story from the horse's mouth.
Yes. So owners being at networking events, I feel, have power that they don't always tap.
That is a really valuable point. And I think even if you can capture it convincingly as a second hand, it still has a certain amount of power, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm representing Sue, so Sue now has a chain of salons, right? And they're focusing on the professional person who has located themselves in a place that's sort of central, right? So like I've got a downtown location. I've got a, suburban location by an upscale mall, that sort of a thing. If I'm Sue, right, I'm afraid that I'm losing that power of my story. I might actually tell people and beat that story into them like, you don't understand. I started this thing from nothing, right?
Absolutely.
It's maybe not as powerful. I don't know. Maybe you disagree. Maybe not as powerful coming secondhand, but it still carries weight.
It does carry weight, but I agree it's not as powerful because, again, it's second generation from Sue.
Yeah, and it may not be true when it's coming from somebody that wasn't there.
It's still a hook, however. It's still a valid story.
Yeah.
It's still a purpose for why Sue started the business and possibly, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, why you might want to start coming to our salon.
Right. Now, I like the story too. I always wonder, where does it run out of gas, right? Like how many hands does it have to pass through? If you're the person for Lipton, you're not going to go around and tell the story about
Mr. Lipton.
dear old Mr. Lipton, right? They're going to be like, yeah, we understand you're a giant multinational corporation and, you've got tea on literally all 7 continents, but thanks for the story, right? Like where does it run out of gas has always been something that's fascinated me. When you do take that step, right? You're Sue and now you want other people to represent you, right? I think that's a tough thing. It's very difficult to maybe tell people how it worked because you're not really telling them what's going to work for them. You're going to tell them what worked for you. I want to change subject to a different idea now. Moving to inside sales, right? If you're working in inside sales, a lot of times you're not in charge necessarily of who the targets are, but you are in charge of how you approach them, right? And I think they make a good example for how do you open conversations. And I do think that this is going to be something that will echo through a few other, scenarios. You don't have a choice in this. You have to call people, right? You've got the headset. So I'm getting you out of the thing where we were saying like, no, don't call if you can avoid it. No, this is your job. You've got to dial for dollars and probably the computer dials for you, right? Are you a person that believes that smiling while you dial actually makes a difference?
Yes.
I am too.
Yes. I mean,
everybody thinks I'm weird, I think, but it's nice to share space with somebody who agrees.
Well, think about what we're doing radio-wise.
Yeah.
Just our conversation being recorded. There's a difference when we're laughing and smiling in the intonation of my voice, and you're going to pick up that the general feeling from me that I'm a really fun chick to be around.
It's true. Absolutely.
And you kind of know that because of how I present myself. Same with the inside salesperson. And I tell you, I think that's one of the most difficult jobs that I ever encountered. I've had both. I've been on both sides of the coin.
Yep.
And the inside sales piece, because you're not seeing that person eye to eye and being able to have that hook. And for me, that's just my strength. I can engage easily in person. On the phone, I really have to be prepared before I pick up that phone, know what I'm going to say, and know what is my hook going to be to that person that I'm trying to get to engage with me.
You know what point you're trying to reach in the conversation, but obviously the other person has more than 50% control over the conversation. They call them sales development reps, and that's their job, is to basically keep working these, phone, email, traditional channels that you and I used to have to do for ourselves, and then go create sales meetings and eventually create contracts from. And I do think that job one is stay up, right? Stay motivated, stay light, stay happy, keep yourself engaged, make friends on the phone. And it all, when I was back there, when I started doing this at whatever, 22 years old, it sounded all hippy dippy to me. Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you have the same experience, or did you just know it was true?
I knew it was true.
Oh,
I did.
I'm so jealous of you.
I did, because you think about, and again, with my clients, I always tell them, when you're going to go, you're prepping yourself to go out and do whatever sales job that is, whether it's going to a networking or event or whatever.
Yeah.
Think about how you are on the receiving end. So when you're getting that call and you're sitting at your desk, what's gonna light you up? What's gonna let you take that call and not tell that person, no, I'm not interested? Or at the networking event, sorry, I know five financial advisors already.
Yeah.
What
from tonight?
Yeah, that's right, from tonight.
Sorry, guys, but it's true. All right, let me try to answer that from my seat normally. So if you call me and I answer and I don't recognize your number, you have to assume that there's a certain amount of I've got free time, but I'm a little skeptical. I'm trying to figure out if this is somebody I know, right? So I don't know, maybe I'm defensive, but I'm also probably doing some boring, repeatable task that someone else should be doing, except for the fact that, it has implications if it's not properly overseen. Like that.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have picked up the phone.
Yeah, there's like something I'm trying to get away from, right? It's like a financial thing where it's like I have to make sure the numbers are right, and I'm the only one who really should be signing the check, right? But I really would like to be talking to somebody. So I decide to. Now, what would it take to kind of get me to engage you longer than I don't know. I think the first thing would probably be that whatever you say first needs to ring true.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would say let's extend that to the whole conversation, but it is like really true, exceedingly true when you first approach me. Don't pretend like you've ever talked to me before. This is a peeve. Cannot stand. Hey, Scott, it's been a while since we talked. We've never spoken. Again, I want you to be up. And I realize that there's a certain amount. I have a terrible term for this. Everyone's going to hate me for saying this, right? But it's the same way I feel about like waiters and wait staff having to be happy and super bouncy or else they don't get their tip. I call it emotional prostitution.
Well, I mean, kind of that's what it is.
It is.
But it takes a talent for someone who is really having a crappy day to portray themselves without being artificial.
Yeah.
Without being fake.
But seriously, like if I'm wait staff making whatever $250 an hour plus tips, P.S. that's not fair. But that's another story and another show.
Yeah, that's another show.
That's 3 shows waiting to happen. But if I'm that, I literally have to pretend that despite your, like rude behavior or ignoring me or whatever, that this is just like the experience of my life, right? Hey, how's everybody doing? And who wants some jalapeno poppers? Right? Everything about that is terrible. But if you're an SDR, you're trying to move on. You're trying to build up to that next rung where they're going to let you actually start designing the bigger pitch, asking for business, taking home larger checks. You got to pay your dues. You got to figure out what pitches work with people and learn a little bit about the customer. So, unfortunately, here we are, and you're just going to have to deal with it. So, yes, here I am basically endorsing the thing that just a second ago I said I hate. It's the effect. It's effectively like the same reason people go back to Facebook like 5 times in an hour. They're just bored. They just don't want to be doing what they're doing. Past that, I would say don't ask for too much. Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, though. Whenever I used to do it, I used to say, I just want to make sure that it's okay that if I stop in there, I give you some things. I'm finding the best possible time for it. Are there any days that are really terrible for me to drop off some things for you? I always liked that. I was accused of that being a little too soft soap, though. I don't know. I like this one. Bottom line up front. Tell me exactly what the value is. That one I like.
That's mine.
Yeah.
Because of how I'm wired. I don't have time for chit chat. Mm-hmm. Just tell me why you're calling me.
Oh, no. You're right. Chit chat a lot of times rubs me the wrong way.
Don't say, hey, how's your day? How's the weather in Pittsburgh? I don't care. Yeah, no. Yeah. Get to the point. Why are you calling me and what can you do for me?
So, in a lot of businesses, the recurring contract is the gold standard, right? The services are where the money is in a lot of businesses. I had a friend literally just call me yesterday. He started a new gig not that long ago. He was getting so frustrated. He found the chief financial officer's direct dial phone number. The admin picks up the phone. She answers the phone for like 4 different C-level execs. And he calls. He says, this is Bill. Is Mr. Jones available? And she's like, is he expecting your phone call? Typical gatekeeper, let's make sure this is real. And the expression is RMR, recurring monthly revenue, right? Mm-hmm. He says, I have 3 letters for your CFO. RMR. I'll wait until he picks up. And sure enough, he picked up. He's like, all right, you got 30 seconds, go. And Bill's like, okay, I can make you money because what you're going to do is you're going to take my product and you're going to sell it to your customers every month for $25. They're not even going to think about it. It's just going to be a done deal. It was a beautiful execution. Like you said, no chit chat.
No chit chat. But again, not to belabor the point, but to know who you're calling and what's important to them. when you have the gatekeeper, this is something that, I help my clients to understand. When you have the gatekeeper, her job, and she's got to be really good at it, is to keep anything that isn't of value to this guy behind the door away from him.
Right.
So if you hit her with something that sounds strategic or important and outside of her general realm, like selling paper towels or whatever, like that person is going to get pushed down. But if I have a strategic statement when I'm hitting the gatekeeper to say whether it's, return on investment's been beaten into the ground.
It sure has.
But something that would be specific to financial, that is an acronym or a hook that's going to get you to him.
I'll tell you another thing. I'm going to bring John Cipher up from last week again. He had me think about something that I'd never thought about before, which was putting the various employees inside of the company into essentially two columns, right? You've got intuitive players who you look to kind of write new policy or like they do things that haven't been written down yet is effectively the idea, right? That's the Michael Jordan type person who they just do things that you didn't know could be done with a basketball, right? But there have to be 4 other people who are what he called procedural, right? These are the people who they drill, they know what to do when the ball's deep and they move into position. And if Michael drives the lane this way, you got to do this. And, paper towel purchase, that's a procedural thing, right? We know who does it. We know how much budget there is for it. There's a repeatable sort of thing happening here where it's like, look, there's a supply chain person who is in charge of all of our cleaning supplies. Talk to them, right? If I'm the CFO, if I'm the president, if I'm the VP of sales, if I'm anybody who is more an intuitive person, yeah, they have learning, right? They have some patterns that they have to follow, some standards they have to meet, but their job is leadership. That's where your opening is there, right? Where you can call them and talk to them, RMR, or whatever it is, and say, I have an idea for you. I need you to see something, and I don't think there's any procedure in your company for evaluating it. That may be a little bit too much there.
No. But again, whatever it is, you better for sure make sure that it is unique and it is something he hasn't seen before.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that authenticity
is gone.
Goes away.
You may as well just stop talking. I appreciate you coming in today.
Oh, it's always fun to be here, Scott. Thanks.
This is a great time. I've been having fun ever since we started the show. Now there comes the part where we have to do the exit thing. So this is the part where I say, Lisa, if somebody wants to reach out to you and contact you, what's the best way?
Best way is go to my website, theoutsourcedsalesmanager.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
At least I'm not a hypocrite.
No, that'd be terrible. We'd be like, yeah, I don't believe in that. We remind everybody that if they have feedback on the show, hit us up on social media. That's LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, let's stop there. And then, go to the website, give us a review, just like we asked at the beginning. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope something that was a little bit more step-by-step comes in handy as you're looking for ways to develop yourself, develop your business, move a little bit forward and advance. If you like this, if you didn't like it, whatever it is, give us the feedback. We're trying something new this week. Thanks so much for tuning in this week and every week. I hope you take care of yourself, and I'll catch you in about 7 days.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by BoXZY Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.